A year ago, you were homeless.
That's correct.
A year later, you are making, I don't know how much money. What is it? I don't even want a million?
I don't like, but yeah, I'm in a million. It's over a million.
Okay, okay. Well, the big question is, I mean, it's like how? I just want to go straight into like kind of learn about yourself through the story. But how did that happen? What was that journey?
Well, basically what happened, well, first of all, I've been fortunate and blessed enough to have found out about the home-based business industry 30 years ago and got involved in it. At the time, I actually owned a little franchise called it was a credit card processing company. I had employees, and what I found out is I hated it. And I never forget a guy literally across the street from me. His name was Dwayne, not going to call his last name. Dwayne used to run over to my office every day, and I mean, he would literally get on my nerves. And he would say, Tim, you got to look at this. You got to look at this, man. You can make this thing called residual. I'm like, man, just get out of my office. Stop. I'm not interested. I'm not doing none of that MLM stuff. My daddy always taught me that it's a scam. I don't do, that's a pyramid. It's a pyramid. I'm not interested. And he was so consistent and persistent that finally one day I got fed up and I said, dude, how much is it? And it was like $100 to get started. And they marketed a dental vision and prescription drug card. I said, okay, Dwayne, if I give you $100 and I pay this $9.99 a month, will you leave me alone? And that's how I got involved in the industry. I had no interest of working it, wasn't going to share it with anybody, had no clue. And I never forget, about a week later, I got a packet in the mail. It was called a kit, because back then you didn't have the internet. Now you can go on the internet and everything. They can put everything online or through your cell phone or whatever. And I got this kit, and I began to go through, and it had these circles and these O's. That's all I remember. And it showed me how if I just went out and shared this thing with a few people, and I got a few customers, you know, I'm in Mississippi. Everybody has teeth. And I'm like, okay, if I go out here and share this with a few people I know, like making additional money, I could make this thing called residual income. And that's what I did. I called a few people to my office the next day after going through that kit. I said, man, just bring me your checkbook, come sign it. Because back then, there wasn't no credit card processing. There was no internet.
How long ago was this?
Yeah, this was 30 years ago. You had to fax in applications. You took checks and had to wait on them to clear and all that stuff. And what's funny is I had a goal. I said, man, this residual income thing sounds sweet. That means I'm going to get paid over and over without getting out of bed. And I don't have to deal with these knucklehead employees. I don't have to figure out their taxes every month. I don't have to deal with people not coming in. I have to come in and open the doors. And I hated it, even though I enjoyed the lifestyle it provided. I enjoyed being my own boss, but I didn't want to do the corporate thing. I didn't want to own a company. I didn't want to have employees who I loved dearly. Some of them are still with me to this day in this new venture. But yeah, that's how I got involved in this thing. And that was 30 years ago, and I set myself a goal that I wanted to get to $1,000 a month residual income. That's all I wanted, was $1,000 a month residual income. And after a couple of months, I hit $1,000. That means I was getting $1,000 a month every month whether I got out of bed and that. So that's how this all started, and that in this journey of this thing called network marketing, whatever people want to call it, MLM, home-based business. I call it phone-based business now because you do everything from a cell phone. And yeah, that's what happened to me. And you know, fast forward, you know, through the years, I was able to get myself involved in a company. I had done one, built it to the top. It was a travel company. Found out some things about the ownership that wasn't really cool with me morally and ethically. And I got started with this guy, with this company called Skinny Body Care. And the owner of this company, his name was Ben Galinsky. And I got on the phone with him, and a couple of things happened. I heard his heart. I heard his vision. I understood what he wanted to do. He wanted to just help people win and do it the right way. And this guy had had paid out over $1 billion in commissions to people. And after I saw the system, marketing system, I said, sign me up. And we marketed literally a fiber peel. And I'll never forget it. The only thing I didn't like, it was a girl on the bottle. It was a pink bottle. And here I am, a grown man that doesn't need to lose I need to gain weight. And but I said, let's go, let's do it. And I said, Ben, I'm going to put 1,000 people in this thing in a month. He said, yeah, whatever. Yeah, right. He told me this later. But you hear this stuff all the time of what people are going to do. People talk good game, whatever. Well, I didn't do it in a month. I did it in about a month and a half. I hit it. Called him up and said, I hit 1,000. He was like, this was, I want to say probably 8 years ago. No, well, it was in that company. About 11 years ago when I got started with that company. Here's the thing, I made about $4.8 million in that company. And during that time, I had moved from Jackson, Mississippi to Dallas, Texas. And with that income, moving up over the years, I finally ended up where I owned my own home. I paid cash for it. It was about $350,000. Paid cash for it. Had the house, the fence, the pool, all the luxury things you want. Real nice house. I had my wife, a couple of kids, 2 girls that were raising. I had 2 brand new leased Porsches every year. I was living the life. And the bad part about it is I was living too much of the life. I had 13 credit cards. I had this old silly black card where you can impress everybody. You go out and you draw out that metal card and you drop it, showing off and whatever, paying all that money for a credit card, paying all that interest, and just wasn't managing my money. And what happened was Ben decided to get out the industry. Ben walked away. He just said, I'm getting out the industry. I've made enough money. I'm good. And I just don't want to do it anymore. And he said, but I'm going to take care of you and the team here in Skinny Body Care, and I'm going to place you with a friend of mine's company that we're going to move everybody to, and we'll give you a top spot over there. And that compensation plan wasn't for me. And it just wasn't the right fit for me personally. So I said, if you guys want to do it, go do it. That's great. Take care of the team and move on. But for me, just wasn't a good fit. And I ended up getting very, very sick. Now, this is when the problems began. I caught double pneumonia. Oh. And I was rushed to the hospital. Didn't even know
understood what double pneumonia is.
I couldn't explain to you now. All they told me when I got to the hospital and took the X-ray, they said you could die. And I had 2 blood clots on my lungs, and I remember them rushing me into surgery. And when I came out of surgery, I had tubes in me to drain out the pneumonia. And I stayed in the hospital about a month, and I was released to go home. And when I got home, something was off. Now, I'm not going to get into personal business. It's one thing I don't do. I don't have hard feelings, any of that stuff, so I'm not going to touch that here or ever. But things weren't right at home. Something was off, and no one wanted to take care of me, and here I am in a wheelchair now because my legs locked up. Okay, I lost the use of my legs when I came out of that ordeal. Something wasn't right, but I dealt with it because I love my kids. I wanted to make sure they were taken care of. But my income dropped from making a lot of money to zero, and I was nothing but debt. So I had to start getting rid of things. And it started off, I had a Rolex watch. I had one from a company years ago. It was worth about $35,000. I pawned it for $1,000. And I got rid of my credit cards. I just let them go. I just didn't pay them. I'm just being honest. This was no good. This was no good. I'm getting letters. I'm getting calls from credit collecting agencies. I let my cars go back. I never understood what an involuntary repossession was. But because I called them, they were courteous to not come snatch the car with a tow truck. What had happened is they come, give them the keys, and they nicely take the cars. Okay. I let my Porsches go, so my Porsche motor credit account overnight charge off. And my spouse convinced me to sell a house. And remember, I paid cash for it. I had a little debt with the RS, but long story short, when we sold that house, went ahead and took a bad deal on it. That house was probably worth $700,000 today. I took $350,000 for it. And long story short, we walked away with about $120,000 because they took everything. The IRS took their cut, and whatever's due, taxes, all that's taken out. We had $130,000, and I made a huge mistake because I had the proceeds go into her account, and she was just supposed to give me half because in the state of Texas, it's split down to me. Even though we weren't divorced or anything, but things are weird at home. Fast forward, After losing everything, I ended up, it got so bad in my living conditions, because we had moved into an apartment, and we were up a flight of stairs, small hallway, couldn't roll wheelchair down, and I was treated so bad at this time in my life. I told you something wasn't right. And it was just so bad that I got to a point where I needed help, and nobody was helping me. And I played this little game. I knew that anytime I would call for an ambulance and lie and go to the hospital and tell them I was suicidal, they would keep me. I played that game for a minute, and that game ran out. Okay, they finally got hip to it. The last place I went and told them I wanted to die, and I was lying. I had no suicidal thoughts, but I just knew to play the game. That they're going to keep me at this hospital. I'm going to get a meal, and I'm going to be taken care of, getting my bed made, and I'm going to have some help, these nurses around, and my home life is all jacked up. Something's done now. And the last situation I was in, they took me from the hospital and put me in a psych ward, and where they have the psychiatrists around every day, and you've gone through that experience. And I'm big and tell people, if something's going on, your mental health is serious now. Get that straight. It's nothing you got to keep to yourself. And sometimes it's just good to talk to other people. And I don't want to get choked up telling the story. I hate telling this story. I'm doing it for you, but I hate telling the story.
Okay.
I've never used this story to build a business or anything like that. Very few people know the story, but I'm giving you the full deal here.
Okay.
I was in the psych ward for a week, and the psychologist, they would come in once a week and make the decision, do you stay or do you go? Made the decision, there's nothing wrong with this fool. This dude's one of the smartest people I ever met. He got to go. And I was like, where am I going? I'm looking forward to it, like going somewhere nicer than this or whatever. No, I was going to a homeless shelter. And they sent me to a homeless shelter. And I never forget, I said, I'm not staying here. I'm not going to do the homeless thing. No. They gave me a bus ticket in Dallas, Texas. And I used that bus ticket to get a ride to the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. And I spent the night in the airport. I went over to the international section, spent the night. And I'll never forget, there was a guy there going to Korea, and his flight was out the next morning. He had been in the States. He owned restaurants, but he didn't have any United States money. And he wanted something to eat out this vending machine. And all he had was Korean money. And I gave him my last $5. Wow. Here I am, about no money. I gave him $5, and he was able to get him something to eat. And I never forget it. And I always say, when you do good, good comes to you. I'm not going to get here and get religious and preachy, but I do believe in when you do right by people, good things will come to you. I just believe that, morally, ethically, and I believe in doing things morally and ethically. And I ended up, they kicked me out the airport, making a long story short. They knew I wasn't supposed to be in there.
What?
I didn't have a ticket. Yeah, you can't sit in the airport.
Okay, yeah.
Even here in Atlanta, you
Right.
can't even go in there now unless you have a
There's
ticket.
limits.
Yeah, they're changing that, right? So what happened was they went back to the homeless shelter, and I talked to the lady. She said, I hope we can get you a room tonight. I'm like, if you don't get me a room, not a room, but a cot, that's what they call it, you're going to have to sleep basically in Skid Row. You're going to sleep outside in a tent. Or we have a section, but I'm like, are you kidding me? She said, but I think I can get you a cot. And she got me a cot. And the way this game was played is every day at 2 o'clock, they started giving out tickets. And they had this long line of homeless. And when you got your ticket, it had a number on it. And then they go down the numbers, and if you got there early enough, you got a cot that night, where you were inside, so you weren't amongst the cold and the rain and all that. Now, I'm in a homeless shelter. I'm around homeless people. And I didn't tell you this part. When I first went to the homeless shelter, someone from the homeless shelter stole my cell phone. Stole it. Took off running, and I couldn't chase her.
Wow.
Crazy. So I had no cell phone, nothing but the clothes on my back, in a wheelchair, in a homeless shelter. Fast forward. I cried one night so bad, and I said, you know what, Tim, I'm not going to cry again, because I didn't have my family, I didn't have my girls, I'm homeless, And I cried and I said, you know, I don't want to be here. If I did it before,